Good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday. We still have an amazing show for everybody today, a little bit more muted after the events of yesterday, and that's where we wanted to start. But Krystal, what do we have in the show?
Yeah, we have some of the people that we think are best able to put into context what happened yesterday. We've got some great reporters, people like Ken Klippenstein, who can talk about the completely failed response to these protesters from federal law enforcement. We've got Philip Wegman on, terrific reporter as well. We've got Matt Taibbi, Glenn Greenwald on, Marshall Kosloff, Don Calloway, all to help make sense of what happened and where the country goes from here, because truly shameful events that unfolded here in this city yesterday.
Yeah, that's right. And, at the top, people on cable news are overwrought and use language like democracy and republic and all that too much so that people become desensitized to it. When you're actually living through a real historical, shameful, anti-democratic
insurrection.
And that's essentially what happened yesterday. This happened during the president, whenever he was speaking at the rally on the Ellipsis around 11 a.m. to many of the protesters who came here to D.C. And at the end of his speech, he incited them to go to the Capitol. Here's what he said. Let's take a listen.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women. And we're probably not going to be cheering so much for some of them, because you'll never take back our country with weakness. You have to show strength, and you have to be strong.
Okay, well, that quickly devolved into this. A couple of hours later, after the march down there from the White House, let's throw this up there on the screen. This was the very beginning, at the steps of the Capitol, and where you saw that, which was actually breached. There's a bunch of inauguration corridors that were set up by Capitol Police. And you can also see, and this is what I think we're going to be talking a lot about today, which is how in the hell, I saw some of these videos where we're talking about 3 Capitol policemen that were in front of the main barricade, in front of the steps right there that were stopping for these people from getting in. And, just many of the images are terrible. The ones that are particularly striking, let's put A1C up there of breaking the window. Yeah, there you can see. One person was apprehended, but using barricades, that's just one example. Many of the other times they were using equipment inside the Capitol itself in order to breach the doors, to the House floor, to the Senate floor, many other leaders' offices, and more. And it's just total and complete chaos. And Trump really, he did not do very much to stop it. Reportedly, didn't even want to call in the National Guard and had to be forced to by his aides and by Mike Pence and others. And it's just shameful. Truly one of the most shameful days. I believe it's the first time the Capitol has been stormed since 1814.
Yeah, and that was like the British.
Yeah, that was the British.
Yeah, it was. This is the first time that this has happened in American history. An American president inciting an insurrection. And let's make it clear, that's exactly what happened. We have 4 people dead today because of what the president said, not just yesterday, which was the final match that lit this flame, but over months, denying the results of this election, fomenting this rage, convincing people of a complete delusion. That's the thing that's so insane here. It's not just that their cause isn't just, it's that their cause is completely fabricated by the very people that they trusted. So my rage is most aimed at, number one, Donald Trump, who doesn't care about the consequences. Not only the reports are that he didn't want to send in the National Guard, reports are he was delighted by this.
Yeah.
He loved watching it. This is his magnum opus, seeing the people rushing to his defense. He loves this insurrection that he created and caused. But my rage does not stop there. Yesterday I went through, and we've been talking about, all the layers of Republicans who, for their own grift and political ambitions, were happy to fuel this nonsense and this utter pack of lies that convince these people that they're patriots for doing this.
And that's where I think we really have to start too, because, first of all, it's not even enough to say they knew better. It's this, is that They thought that they could play 9D chess, and they're like, what we'll do is we'll take their rage and we'll channel it into Pennsylvania election law.
Into our own fundraising.
Right, into our fundraising.
That.
Right. They're like, what we'll do is, this is the cynic, right? Is they're like, what we'll take this and we'll channel it into this more legitimate, more respectable. And what have I said here from the beginning? If you're going to go, then go all in. And that was the thing. What it always was. The lady who got shot yesterday, she's a QAnon, total believer, Lynn Wood, all that other nonsense. That's what it was always all about. It was always about Dominion and Sidney Powell and the Kraken.
George Soros.
It's George Soros. Exactly. And that's, these Republican senators thought that they could two things. They thought they could fool the public by saying that they are being, legitimate champions of the heroes of, the people who voted for Trump. And they thought that they could fool those people themselves. It's nobody thinks that. What they really did is actually legitimize this entire idea and give people false hope that if enough senators objected, that it would be kicked off and the election results could be decertified. As you and I said, what would have happened even if they decertified? They would have kicked it to the House of Representatives under Nancy Pelosi. It's total madness. The entire thing was a lie over and over again, and those lies led to bloodshed yesterday, which is, again, look, I don't blame many people for, if you have total lack of trust in our institutions, I get it. And so I'm not going to blame them for what what they believe and all of that. But I do blame the people who knew better and cynically tried to use it and shape it and push it in a more respectable direction for their own political ambitions, when all it was Trump talking about Dominion voting machines and storming the Capitol. And that is what happened yesterday.
People have their own agency, and they made their own decisions, and so we're not excusing that. I know you're not excusing that either, and I just want to make that completely clear. But yeah, Ted Cruz, Josh Hawley, Matt Gaetz, how did you all feel when you were hunkering down, fearing for your lives because of what you brought upon this nation, what you brought upon your own colleagues? How'd you sleep last night after doing that? Oh, and by the way, after all of this, Cruz, Hawley, and 4 other Republican senators still voted for these bogus bullshit allegations about Pennsylvania. Apparently it wasn't enough for them. 4 dead Americans and their colleagues and the desecration of the Capitol in an event that is truly traumatic for the entire nation. Apparently that still wasn't enough for them. This has always been the danger. The danger was not that Donald Trump was going to create some master plan and have the military and be able to do anything that was going to be effective in securing his, dictatorial reign for 4 more years or for a lifetime, right? That was never the danger. This was always the danger. And I confess, after there wasn't violence after Election Day, after it was kind of calm, I thought, you know what? I think we've gotten through the worst of it. I think we're going to be able to move forward. Yes, did I start getting nervous when Trump starts tweeting out, hey, we'll see you in D.C. on January 6th. It's going to be a wild time. Yeah, but I had hoped we had gotten through the worst of it because this was always the fear. He's too much of a coward, and so is Cruz and Hawley and all the rest. They're not going to storm the barricades. They'll send out a tweet, put on a press release, and hope that these people will take it up and run with it because they have made the devastating mistake of having trust in some of these people and believing the absolute intentional pack of lies that they've put out there. And let's be clear, a majority of Republicans have either actively gone along with or they've just stayed silent. The number of people who came out and said, you know what, this is wrong and this is not what we should be doing in American democracy on the Republican side is vanishingly small. And I know how much crap you've been getting for saying it, right? Because
they hate me for it. And this is the thing. It's all LARPing. This is what this whole thing is. Like you said, it's tweeting. It was never a master plan, stealing the ballot boxes, you bill box. None of that was ever going to happen. And this is why people overreach whenever they talk about the grand. This was the real danger, right? This is this is the worst case scenario. This is the worst thing Trump has ever done. And I was looking, I have a collection of presidential biographies, and I was looking at him yesterday, and I was like, this is what we're actually going to remember him for.
Yes.
And I was thinking back, there's so many times in our history that this actually almost happened. Whenever Truman fired Douglas MacArthur, people almost stormed the Capitol. Literally, people in the chamber were like, this is the only time I've ever felt that the government of the United States was in danger. But you know what happened? People in the Senate and people who knew better took over the passions and said, you know what, we're going to cool this whole thing down. And that's what real leadership looks like, right? That's what actually happened once in our history. And it was shameful.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, these people in the Senate, they thought they could play with fire, and they thought that they could cynically control and manipulate it. And what happened? It's one of the most scarring events that has happened in a long time. And I already know that there are a lot of conservatives and Republicans, I've been getting it all the last 24 hours, who are rolling their eyes and are saying, yeah, but the liberals and the Black Lives Matter riots and the protests. First of all, if you actually believe in rule of law, then it applies in both cases. And that's the thing, is that trying to adopt the tactics of people who are also lawless is just begetting more lawlessness itself. It doesn't justify anything that happened yesterday, and it just leads to complete breakdown and tribalization and literal civil war. I mean, if that's the end result, because they're like, well, the other side did it, you can use that justification for anything. You can use it for anything you want, and it's not enough, is that people had to stand up and say, no, this is not okay. The people, just like what I talked about then, the people who justified and excused it and, justified it from the highest levels of the mainstream media and corporations and all of that, that doesn't make it okay in order to go and storm the U.S. Capitol for the first time since 1814. Actually, the first time American citizens were the ones who did it. It makes me sick, because it actually made me realize that I'm in the distinct minority here. Well, among, people on the right. I really am. They're all acting just like the left. I went on my Twitter feed today. They're like lionizing this woman who was shot yesterday. And look, I feel terrible for her. She clearly believed some absolute nonsense. She was a big QAnon person. She was unarmed and we can have many conversations about that. But they're acting, I saw comments. They're like, well, whenever they steal an election and they don't listen to us and there's wars, then what else do you think we're supposed to do? And I'm like, you sound just like the left. Whenever they were out there burning things down in our streets, when you were out there calling for law and order, you need to pick one. And I'm so sick of it.
And agree. Yeah. I will say, at least on the left, there was a cause of ending racism. We watched George Floyd's life be snuffed down in the street.
It's still not justified.
It's not justified, but this cause is nothing. It's a fantasy. It's a complete invention and fomented and supported by the majority of Republicans in the United States Congress and the President of the United States. This needs to be made absolutely clear to everyone who has any position of authority in the media, in politics, in corporate life. Everyone needs to understand this country is a tinderbox.
It's true.
This shit is not a game. Yeah. You think this is something you can play with, inciting, playing with people, convincing them they're patriots? Look, you got a lot of desperate people out there right now.
That's the other part.
Who have suicides, crisis of addiction, all of this shit is off the charts. We are at each other's literal throats. Political violence throughout the entire past year. And you think you can just casually play with matches in this environment? This is exactly what happens. And again, that's not denying agency and denying culpability to the people that are involved here. And by the way, we're going to talk to Ken Klippenstein about the total failed response from law enforcement. These people are on social media planning this for weeks. It's not like this couldn't be anticipated. And you can damn well be sure if it was Black Lives Matter protesters who were planning on storming the Capitol, you would have seen a different face and a different action from law enforcement.
I don't think that's helped, because look,
it's 100% true.
They were allowed to riot and burn stuff in the streets for months across the entire country.
The military was called on them. Tear gas shot at them.
Yes, correct. After 3 days of nonstop rioting.
We're going to talk about the law enforcement response with Ken Klippenstein. But everyone needs to understand the country is a tinderbox. You cannot play with people. You cannot incite people. All these people on here who are pitting the left against the right for their own personal brands and media careers, cut it out. You're destroying the country. I really don't even know. I know we're supposed to say right now, country's strong, we're going to be fine, it's going to be great, this is going to be the moment when we hit bottom, we all come back together and sing Kumbaya. I don't know. I don't think that future is certain. Not at all. You look at those images yesterday, can this country even be governed at this point? Are we too far gone?
Well,
I really don't know the answer to that.
I think we'll be okay. But, and this is, we have to learn lessons. How did this happen? How is it that people poured into the streets, left and right, all within a year of a pandemic? I think the root of this is a total government failure in the result of the response to the pandemic. And I'm not taking away people's agency. I'm saying you lock people in their homes and you take people's jobs away and you don't pay them any money and you don't give people any hope. And then you have this crazy election and then you have a crazy media, which we're going to talk about with Matt Taibbi later today, which is built in order to divide people and in order to make sure that that happens. What actually happens? It's this. This is the actual result. And so you can give people agency and also say there were downstream effects that we saw. I mean, all across the country, we see like opioid deaths skyrocketing. We see depression skyrocketing. We see, people, religiosity is way down. People are not able to access their communitarian groups, which also fulfill that need for a lot of people. This is leading to an isolated, angry life. This is how QAnon gets into the minds of people. This is how, whenever you see something on TV and you go out and riot in the streets because it makes you feel good and part of something.
Makes you feel like a hero.
It makes you feel like a hero, but you're not a hero. And I really mean this. In either case, you're not a hero. All you're doing, and this is the other thing too. Let's say you even think it's justified. What happened with the riots 6 months ago? Black Lives Matter has a net zero approval rating. If you thought you had any chance of actually even doing anything, changing the minds of the country and more, people hate this stuff. Yeah. This is going to lead to an even bigger backlash against you. I mean, and so from a pure political move, this is insane because you just made the case for the Biden presidency, for the let's just calm everybody down. I mean, and we've warned here many times about what the dangers of what calming down and going back to normal and all this, but people are sitting at home and enough of this shit. And I can't tell you how many phone calls, text messages, I'm sure you did too. Hey, are you in Washington? I know you're in the White House. Are you okay? It seemed like June. It's just like during those riots back then. There's something that's activated in people about safety and about wanting to go back to normalcy. And people on the right, I think finally, said, oh, look at all the stuff that was justified here. But you can't turn around and do this. It just makes you a hypocrite. And worse, it will turn the entire country against you. And apologizing for it. And really, I think, I have to return. The people who knew better and thought they could cynically exploit this for their own political gain, this is on you. This is 100% on you. And it's also on many, and I never let the establishment off the hook, right? I mean, we were talking about this before. You see George W. Bush out there being like, this is what happens in a banana republic. And I'm like, shut up. I'm like, how did Baghdad work out in 2003, my friend?
All of these, the Lincoln Project.
Condoleezza Rice.
Even Mitch McConnell last night, he gave a good speech yesterday and gave a good statement last night, and I'm glad that he did. But come on, you've been enabling this crap. Was it worth it for your damn judges? Was it worth it, Mitch? Because you and all of the rest of the people who just went along with this over, and I'm not just talking about in the Trump era, right? You created the conditions that led to this day. Everyone in the media who lied about the Iraq War, everyone in government who lied about the Iraq War, who fomented that, everyone who caused the financial crisis, everyone who bailed out the villains of the financial crisis, everyone who contributed over decades to destroying every single trusted institution in this country contributed to the events of yesterday. And yes, Donald Trump is 100% responsible for lighting the match. Last night he tweeted, oh, finally, okay, we're going to have an orderly transition of power. Orderly. How's that going? Not to mention he continues to lie directly to his own supporters. That's who he's really harming here. That's who's dead from yesterday's events, his own supporters. I totally disagree with the outcome of the election, and the facts bear me out. What a load of crap. We're going to talk about this too, and I think we might have a disagreement on this. I was opposed to impeachment over the Ukraine stuff because I thought that was ridiculous, elite-led nonsense. This should not stand. If the House and the Senate have any principles and any moral courage left, they will remove this man from office, because you cannot incite an insurrection in this country and just allow that to stand and say, he's going to go soon anyway. You have to send a message that this is utterly unacceptable, because if you don't, it will become the ordinary course of business.
Well, here's the question. Is it already the ordinary course of business? Because I think it is. And the second is do you want more violence in this country? Because I don't. I mean, that's my main concern here. I want way less violence. And I think that this is probably one of the things that would spark a tinderbox. And I'm not even talking about the merits. On the merits, there's a case. I'll leave it at that. But I think that in terms of the practicality, look, 13 days, it's a hellish 13 days. Yes, this is the worst case scenario. We're not going to lie to you. This
is
right
what
here,
we were afraid of.
This is what everybody was afraid of. This is what the Never Trumpers said back in 2016. And the problem is like we were just saying, they can be right on some things, but their track records are bad. And not just bad, they were part of the system, which created the conditions for people like Trump and them to rise. I'm just waiting for somebody who is both an honorable person and who can recognize the structural inequities in our economy, our foreign policy, and the way that we live our lives in the 21st century. Why is it so hard? Why? It's everything I see online is, you're either this total neocon longing for the days of George W. Bush, which, count me out, or you're just full-blown Trump. And I'm like, there is a way. Are there not reasonable people left in America? I think there are. I mean, a lot of them watch the show, but I think the real thing that it all comes down to is this is the lesson, is we have to see this. And I think I made fun of a lot of norms, and we both did, right? And character and all that. Character matters. This is where you really find it out.
Yeah.
I mean, it does. And people talk about it too much and try and use it in order to paper over their policy failures, but it does matter.
Well, they hand-wring over the crap that doesn't actually matter, and then when something like this happens, they don't have the words left to describe how truly outrageous and shocking and horrible for the country it ultimately was. Shameful, shameful day. And your point is 100% correct. For those people who were storming the Capitol, thought they were doing some great service to the nation, and for their leader, Donald Trump, you have done more damage to your own cause than anyone else possibly could have done.
Yeah, that's 100% true. All right.
Coming up, we're going to have journalist Glenn Greenwald. He's going to talk about what exactly happened yesterday, and there's a whole new conversation about civil liberties that is burgeoning on the right. We're going to dig into that when Rising returns.